It was night on the far edge of the galaxy. The mining colony lay silent under a dark red sky. Only the sound of distant machinery and the steady hiss of acid rain filled the air. Ethan Cole stepped out of the control tower, pulling his worn jacket tighter. He was tired. His hands were sore from long hours repairing cargo haulers. He only wanted to get back to his ship, see his son, and rest. The rain burned slightly as it touched his skin. Not enough to scar, but enough to remind him why no one stayed outside for long. He hurried through the empty docking bay, his boots splashing in shallow puddles. Then he froze. Somewhere in the darkness, there was a sound, a faint, trembling sound. Crying. It was strange. No one left their children out here, not on this dangerous colony. He turned his head, following the sound. Past the tall stacks of cargo crates, near a flickering light, he saw a figure, small, weak. It was a girl. Her skin was pale silver, faintly glowing under the light. Her dark hair clung to her face, dripping with acid rain. She held a broken communicator close to her chest, as if it was the only thing she owned. She looked up at him. Her eyes were large and bright, but filled with fear. "Please," she whispered. Her voice shook. "I need help." Ethan's first instinct was caution. He had seen enough strange things in the galaxy to know that strangers could bring trouble, and trouble was the last thing he needed. But he also saw something else in her eyes. Something that stopped him from walking away. It was the look of someone who had nowhere left to run. He stepped closer, moving slowly so she would not panic. "What's your name?" he asked. She hesitated, her lips trembling, but she did not answer. The rain hit her again, and she flinched. Her thin clothes were soaked. If she stayed outside much longer, the acid rain would burn her skin raw. Ethan sighed under his breath. "All right, come on," he said quietly. "You can warm up in my ship." She blinked, almost in disbelief, then gave a tiny nod. When he reached out his hand, she placed hers in his. Her fingers were cold, and she was shaking. Ethan led her quickly through the docking bay toward his cargo ship. The ship was old but sturdy, with a few patches on the hull from years of travel. Its name, the Horizon's Edge, was painted faintly near the hatch. As they walked, Ethan glanced over his shoulder. He thought he saw movement in the shadows between the crates. Something tall, watching. His gut tightened. He tapped the ship's control pad, and the hatch hissed open. "Inside," he told her. She stepped in, her bare feet leaving wet prints on the metal floor. Ethan followed, shutting the hatch behind them with a heavy thud. The sound of the rain faded, replaced by the low hum of the ship's systems. Inside, warm air began to wrap around them. The girl's shoulders lowered slightly, but she still held the broken communicator tightly. Ethan motioned for her to sit on a bench near the heater. She obeyed without a word. Her gaze darted around the ship, like she was memorizing every detail. From the small sleeping area, a young boy's voice called out, "Dad, you're back." It was Ben, Ethan's 8-year-old son. He stepped into the corridor, rubbing his eyes. When he saw the girl, his eyebrows rose. "Who's that?" he asked curiously. "Someone who needs our help," Ethan replied. He looked back at the girl. "You're safe here." For the first time, she gave the smallest hint of a smile, but it vanished quickly. Her eyelids grew heavy. She leaned against the wall, fighting to stay awake. Ethan noticed her breathing slowing, her grip on the communicator loosening. He reached forward and gently took it from her hands, setting it on the table. It was cracked, with wires hanging out. Before sleep claimed her, she whispered in a voice so soft he almost missed it, "If they find me, they will kill you too." Ethan's heart sank. He looked toward the sealed hatch, thinking of the shadows he saw outside. Who was she? And who was coming for her? The girl's breathing deepened. She was asleep now, save for the moment. But Ethan knew, without a doubt, that this was only the beginning. Outside, in the cold darkness of the docking bay, something moved again, silent, patient, watching the horizon's edge like a predator waiting for the right moment to strike. And somewhere deep inside him, Ethan knew that, by letting her in, he had just stepped into a storm far greater than the acid rain. The night on the mining colony had been quiet when he first walked out of the tower. Now, it felt like the whole galaxy had shifted. He glanced at Ben, who stood watching the sleeping girl with wide eyes. Ethan put a hand on his son's shoulder. "Go get some rest, kid," he said softly. "We'll figure this out in the morning." But in his heart, he already knew. The morning might bring answers, or it might bring danger to his doorstep. Either way, life on the horizon's edge had just changed forever. The hum of the ship's engines was steady. Outside, the blackness of space stretched forever. Inside, the girl slept on the bench near the heater, wrapped in a spare blanket. Ethan sat at the small table in the galley, staring at the broken communicator he had taken from her. It was unlike anything he had seen. The metal casing was smooth, almost like glass, and the inner wires glowed faintly blue. Whoever made this technology was far ahead of anything humans built. Ben sat across from him, his small hands holding a steaming cup of cocoa. "Dad," he whispered, "is she going to stay with us?" Ethan shook his head slowly. "I don't know, kid. We don't even know her name yet." As if on cue, a soft voice came from behind them. "My name is Liara." They turned. She stood in the doorway, the blanket still around her shoulders. Her silver skin reflected the dim light, and her dark eyes looked calmer now, but there was still a shadow of fear in them. Ben smiled. "Hi, Liara. I'm Ben." She gave a small nod. "Thank you for letting me stay here." Ethan studied her for a moment. "Liara, where are you from?" She hesitated. The silence between them felt heavy. Finally, she said, "Far from here." "That's not much of an answer," Ethan said. "Who's looking for you?" Her gaze dropped to the floor. "It's safer if you don't know." That answer made him uneasy. He had heard it before, during his years as a pilot in the war. It was the kind of thing people said when the truth could get you killed. Ben, trying to break the tension, pulled out a small handheld game. "Wanna play?" he asked her. Liara blinked in surprise, then gave the faintest smile. "Yes, I would. Like that." She sat beside him, watching intently as he explained the rules. For a while, the only sounds were the beeps of the game and Ben's laughter. Ethan almost let himself relax. Then the ship's console beeped sharply. He rose and walked to the cockpit. The message indicator was flashing. When he opened it, lines of alien script filled the screen. It took a moment for the translator software to process it. Then the words appeared in plain English. "Return the Royal Air, or face destruction." Ethan's blood ran cold. He glanced back, toward the galley. Liara was leaning closer to Ben, smiling softly as he showed her another game. Level. Royal Air. He turned back to the console, scanning for the message source. The signal was encrypted, bouncing across multiple relay stations. Whoever sent it was making sure they couldn't be traced easily. He powered down the message screen, not wanting to alarm Ben just yet. But the thought kept spinning in his mind. If she was truly some kind of royal, then the people looking for her would not stop, and they would not care who got hurt in the process. Later that evening, when Ben had gone to bed, Ethan sat with Liara in the galley again. The dim heater light flickered softly between them. "Liara," he began carefully, "someone sent me a message. They called you a royal heir." She froze. Her fingers tightened on the edge of the blanket. Her voice was barely a whisper. "I can't go back." Ethan leaned forward. "Why?" She looked at him then, and for the first time, he saw anger behind the fear. "My father wants to use me, to make me a tool for his empire. I ran away before they could trap me." Ethan frowned. "That's a dangerous choice. And now they're sending threats." Liara's voice shook, but her eyes stayed locked on his. "If they find me, they will take me. and they will kill anyone who helps me. Ethan felt the weight of her words. He thought of Ben sleeping peacefully in his bunk. He thought of the shadows he saw moving in the rain on the colony. Before he could reply, the proximity alarm blared. Ethan jumped to his feet and rushed to the cockpit. Out the viewport, in the distance, a massive shape was moving toward the colony. Its lights burned like fire in the dark. It was a warship. He could feel the thrum of its engines, even from here. Too big to be a cargo hauler, too armed to be a merchant vessel. Liara appeared behind him, her voice tight. "They've found me." Ethan gripped the controls, his jaw set. If they were coming for her, they were coming for him too now, and there was no turning back. The warship grew larger on the horizon of space, its hull covered in black armor that seemed to swallow the starlight. Its engines glowed deep red, like the eyes of a predator locking onto prey. Inside the horizon's edge, Ethan's hands moved quickly over the control panel. He shut down non-essential systems, rerouted power to the engines, and kept the shields at standby. Running was the only option. Liara stood behind him, her hands clutching the back of the pilot's chair. "They will scan us," she said, her voice tight. "If they know I am here, they will not stop." Ethan glanced at her. "They already." "No, you said it yourself. They found you." She looked away, guilt flashing in her eyes. "I didn't mean to bring this to you and your son." Ethan's tone was steady, but there was steel in it. "You didn't bring this to us. I let you in. That makes it my choice." The ship's console flashed red. Incoming transmission. Ethan opened the channel. A deep, cold voice filled the cockpit. "This is Captain Drevel of the Kryn Dominion. You are harboring stolen royal property. Surrender her immediately, or be destroyed." Ethan kept his voice calm. "She's not property, and she's not going anywhere with you." There was a pause. Then the voice replied, sharper this time. "You have 3 minutes to reconsider." The channel cut. Ben's voice came from the doorway. "Dad, what's happening?" Ethan forced a small smile. "Just a little detour, kid. Go strap in. It's going to get bumpy." Ben nodded, but didn't look convinced. He hurried to his seat, glancing back at Liara with wide, worried eyes. Ethan activated the engines. The cargo ship lifted away from the colony platform. Thrusters roared as he pushed the throttle forward. Almost instantly, the warship's massive cannons rotated toward them. Bolts of red plasma streaked past the viewport, missing by meters. "Hold on," Ethan muttered, diving the ship hard to the left. The inertial dampeners groaned as the horizon's edge banked into a sharp turn. More plasma fire lit up the darkness behind them. Liara gripped the seat rail tighter. "They have fighters. Smaller, faster ships. They'll be on us soon." Ethan scanned the navigation screen. A dense asteroid field loomed ahead. Perfect. He angled the ship toward it. Ben's voice trembled from the back. "Dad, are we going to die?" Ethan's jaw tightened. "Not today." The asteroids rose before them like drifting mountains, their surfaces jagged and broken. Ethan guided the ship between them, weaving through narrow gaps. Rocks the size of houses tumbled past, spinning slowly in the void. Behind them, the warship held position, but 3 smaller fighters broke off and entered the asteroid field. Their sleek black frames glinted in the dim light as they closed the distance. "They're faster," Liara warned. "They'll catch us." "Only if I let them," Ethan replied. He swung the ship hard around a spinning rock, ducking into a shadowed crevice between 2 massive asteroids. The fighters followed, their weapons lighting up the dark with bursts of plasma. The blasts struck nearby stone, sending clouds of debris spinning through the field. Ethan twisted the ship into a steep climb, skimming the surface of a jagged asteroid. One fighter clipped the rock and exploded in a silent flash, fragments scattering in all directions. 2 left, Ethan muttered, eyes locked on the nav display. His pulse was steady now, his old pilot instincts coming alive. The remaining fighters spread out, trying to box him in. Ethan's hands moved fast, controlling both the main thrusters and the side maneuvering jets. He slipped between two drifting boulders so close that the hull scraped against stone. A second fighter tried to follow but smashed into a tumbling rock, vanishing in a burst of fire. "That's two," Ben said from behind, almost in awe. The last fighter stayed on them, more cautious now. Ethan guided the ship deeper into the field, toward a cluster of asteroids spinning around each other like a slow, deadly dance. "This is going to be close," Ethan said. He dove through a narrow gap just as two massive rocks collided behind them. The impact crushed the fighter instantly, scattering wreckage into the void. Silence returned. Ethan eased the throttle, letting the ship drift deeper into the asteroid shadows. The warship outside the field didn't follow. It simply waited. "They're not giving up," Liara said quietly. "They never do." Ethan turned to face her. "Then we keep moving, and we stay one step ahead." Her eyes searched his for a moment, then she nodded. A small, grateful smile touched her lips. But in the darkness beyond the asteroids, faint shapes flickered for a moment. Another ship, cloaked, watching them. They weren't as alone as they thought. The asteroid field was silent now. No chasing fighters. No incoming plasma fire. Only the soft hum of the horizon's edge drifting in the shadows. Ethan powered down the main engines to avoid detection. The ship floated between two massive rocks, their surfaces pitted and scarred from centuries of impacts. Inside, the lights were dim. It almost felt peaceful. Almost. Ben sat cross-legged on the floor of the galley, showing Liara one of his old toy ships. It was scratched and missing a wing, but he held it like it was treasure. "This one was my mom's favorite," he told her. "She used to make it fly around the table while Dad cooked dinner." Liara's lips curved into a small smile. "What happened to her?" she asked gently. Ben hesitated. "She got sick when I was little. Dad took care of her until—" His voice trailed off. Ethan, leaning against the doorway, finished for him. "She passed." Liara lowered her gaze. "I am sorry." Ben shrugged, trying to act braver than he felt. "It's okay. Dad takes care of me now. He's the best pilot in the galaxy." Ethan gave a small chuckle. "I wouldn't go that far, kid." Liara looked at Ethan for a moment, studying him. "You risked your life for me, twice now. Why?" Ethan's answer was simple. "Because you needed help." She tilted her head slightly. "In my world, no one does that without wanting something in return. That's not how humans work," Ethan said quietly. "At least, not the good ones." There was a pause. The hum of the ship filled the silence between them. Finally, Liara spoke again. "I grew up in a palace. I had food, servants, and clothes made from the finest silk in the empire. But I was not free. Every choice was made for me. Every word was measured. Every friend I had was chosen by someone else." Her voice dropped lower. "I used to look out at the stars and wonder what it would feel like to be able to choose where to go, who to be." Ben leaned forward. "Well, now you can. You're with us." For the first time, Liara smiled fully. It was small, but it was real. Ethan stepped closer to the table. "You're safe here, Liara, at least for now. We'll get you somewhere they can't reach you." Her eyes softened, but there was a flicker of sadness in them. "They will never stop looking. Not for me. Not for what I am." Ethan was about to reply when a soft beeping sound interrupted them. He turned to the console on the wall. A blinking light showed a new system alert. Not an incoming transmission. Not a proximity warning. It was an internal scan. A hidden signal was broadcasting from somewhere inside the ship. Ethan's stomach sank. He crossed the galley quickly, following the signal strength on the scanner. It led him straight to the table where Liara sat. His eyes locked on the small, glowing necklace she wore. "Liara," he said slowly, "where did you get that?" She touched it instinctively. My mother gave it to me when I was a child. It is the only thing I have left from her. Ethan checked the scanner again. The signal was coming directly from it. It's a tracker. Her face went pale. No, it can't be. Ethan's voice was firm. It is, which means they already know exactly where we are. Before she could answer, Ben pointed to the viewport. Dad, look. Through the thin gap between two asteroids, a faint shimmer moved against the stars. It was there for only a moment, like light bending around an invisible object. Ethan's breath caught. A cloaked ship. They weren't hiding alone in this asteroid field. They were being hunted. The shimmer outside the asteroid field grew larger. Slowly, the invisible outline of a ship revealed itself as its cloaking field deactivated. It was sleek, black, and armed with weapons that looked far too advanced for a simple merchant vessel. The sight of it made Ethan's grip tighten on the pilot's chair. A voice crackled through the comm system. Cargo vessel Horizon's Edge, do not be alarmed. I am not here to harm you. Ethan exchanged a wary glance with Liara. The voice was deep and steady, but there was a smooth confidence in it that made him uneasy. The image of a man appeared on the small comm screen. Tall, broad shoulders. Dark armor with silver markings that glowed faintly. A scar cut across his cheek, and his eyes were the pale yellow of a predator. My name is Vrax, the man said. I have been tracking the Kryn warship. I know they are after you. I can help you escape their patrols. Ethan kept his tone neutral. And what do you want in return? Vrax's lips curved into a faint smile. Only safe passage to the nearest free station. We both get what we want. Liara stepped closer to the screen. Her eyes narrowed. Why help us? Vrax gave a small shrug. Because I have no love for the Kryn Dominion. And because I was paid to find you before they did. Ethan's hand moved toward the console's power switch, but Vrax continued quickly. Not by the Emperor, by someone else. Someone who wants you alive? There was a long silence. Liara finally nodded once. Let him dock. Ethan didn't like it, but the cloaked ship was close enough that if Vrax wanted to attack, he already would have. He opened the docking port. Moments later, Vrax stepped aboard. He moved with quiet confidence, his boots making no sound on the metal floor. Up close, Ethan could see the strange designs etched into his armor, marks of battles fought on worlds Ethan had never even heard of. Vrax looked around the small ship. You travel light, he said, his gaze landing on Ben for just a moment before returning to Liara. You must be tired. I can take first watch while you rest. Ethan didn't respond. He didn't trust this man, but for now, they needed his knowledge of the Dominion patrol routes. Hours passed in uneasy silence. Ethan kept one eye on the controls, and the other on Vrax, who sat near the viewport, watching the asteroid shadows drift by. Sometime during the artificial night cycle, Ethan's eyes grew heavy. He fought the urge to sleep, but exhaustion crept in finally. He leaned back in the pilot's chair, just to rest for a moment. A faint sound woke him. Not loud, just enough to stir the edge of his awareness. When he opened his eyes, the chair beside him was empty. The soft hum of the ship's systems masked quieter movements coming from the galley. Ethan rose silently, and stepped forward, and froze. Vrax was there, his hand gripping Liara's arm. Her blanket had fallen to the floor, and her necklace was in his other hand. It's worth a fortune, Vrax murmured. Your father will pay well for your return. Liara struggled, her voice low, but fierce. I will never go back to him. Vrax's smile was cold. You won't have a choice. Ethan moved fast. In one motion, he slammed into Vrax, knocking him against the bulkhead. The bounty hunter staggered but recovered quickly, drawing a short, curved blade from his belt. The two men clashed in the narrow corridor, the sound of metal hitting metal echoing through the ship. Ethan ducked under a swing, slammed his shoulder into Vrax, and drove him back toward the cargo bay. in zero-gravity mode. The bay was a dangerous place to fight. One wrong move, and you could be floating helplessly into the cold dark. They grappled, twisting and turning in mid-air. Ethan's fist caught Vrax in the jaw, sending him spinning. But Vrax was strong, and his armor took most of the impact. Liara appeared at the bay's control panel, her hands flying over the keys. A sudden burst of compressed air knocked Vrax toward the small docking hatch. Before he could recover, Liara hit the release. The hatch burst open, and the bounty hunter was thrown out into space. The hatch sealed again with a heavy clang. Ethan floated there, breathing hard. Liara gripped the panel, her chest rising and falling quickly, but the relief was short. A warning light flashed on the console. Vrax's ship, still docked by remote clamp, had sent out a transmission before he was ejected. Coordinates. Ethan's stomach tightened. He told them where we are. Through the viewport, faint shapes appeared at the edge of the asteroid field. Dark silhouettes of incoming warships. The Kryn Dominion was here. The first warship emerged from the shadows like a predator breaking from cover. Then, another, and another. 5 Kryn Dominion cruisers now surrounded the asteroid field. Their hulls glowed faint red under the light of distant stars. Each one bristled with weapons capable of tearing the horizon's edge apart in seconds. Inside the cockpit, Ethan's fingers flew over the controls. He switched all systems to combat mode, diverting every scrap of power to shields and engines. Ben's voice trembled behind him. "Dad, what do we do?" Ethan didn't look back. "We fight, and we don't stop moving." Liara stood beside the pilot's chair. "If they capture me, they'll spare you and your son." Ethan's tone was sharp. "Not an option." The cruisers opened fire. Beams of plasma tore through the asteroid field, lighting up the darkness. The shockwaves rattled the small cargo ship like a tin can in a storm. Ethan gritted his teeth, throwing the ship into a hard roll to avoid a direct hit. The hull screamed under the pressure. "They're hurting us," Liara warned. "They want to push us out into open space where they can crush us." "Then we don't give them the chance," Ethan said. He steered into the densest cluster of asteroids, weaving between rocks that could smash them apart with one wrong move. The Dominion cruisers hesitated at the edge. Their massive size made it dangerous to follow closely. Instead, they launched smaller interceptors. Sleek black shapes darted toward them like swarms of deadly insects. Plasma fire streaked past the viewport. Ben gripped the back of Ethan's chair. "Dad, weapons ready." Ethan nodded. "Liara, get to the turret." She didn't hesitate. Within moments, the ship's side guns roared to life. Bright bursts of energy lit up the darkness as she fired at the incoming interceptors. One enemy ship exploded in a flash of blue light. Another spiraled into an asteroid and shattered on impact. Ethan dodged a barrage of plasma, skimming dangerously, close to a massive spinning boulder. The enemy was fast, but he was faster. "Dad, there's a big one right behind us," Ben shouted. Ethan checked the rear sensors. A heavily armored interceptor was closing in, weapons locked. "Hold on." Ethan pulled the ship into a sudden vertical climb, twisting through a gap between 2 tumbling asteroids. The enemy ship tried to follow, but a chunk of rock the size of a small building slammed into it, breaking it apart. Ben cheered. "Nice. Won." But the victory was short-lived. The cruisers outside the field had adjusted their aim. Now they were firing into the asteroid cluster itself, blowing apart the very cover Ethan was using. Chunks of debris spun in every direction. One slammed into the side of the horizon's edge, sending alarms blaring. "Shields at 30%, Liara shouted from the turret. Ethan's mind raced. They couldn't win in a straight fight, but maybe they didn't need to. "Ben," Ethan called, "bring me the emergency transponder." Ben grabbed a small black device from the supply rack and handed it to him. Ethan keyed in a sequence and set it to transmit on all channels. "What are you doing?" Liara asked. "Calling for help," Ethan said. from someone who can actually scare them. The transponder began to emit a high-frequency pulse. Within seconds, the cockpit's screen lit up. A new voice, sharp and commanding, cut through the static. "This is the Empress of the Kryn Dominion. All vessels, stand down immediately." Lyra's eyes widened. "My mother." The warships outside froze, their weapons powered down. The interceptors broke off their attack. On the screen, the image of the Empress appeared, tall, regal, with the same silver skin as Liara, but her eyes held the weight of authority that could command an empire. "Daughter," she said, her voice steady, but edged with emotion. "You are safe now." Liara stepped closer to the screen. "Safe. Because of him," she said, nodding toward Ethan, "and I'm not coming back to live in the palace." The Empress's gaze shifted to Ethan. "You have protected my child. For that, you have the gratitude of the Kryn Dominion." Ethan kept his voice calm. "All I want is for her to be free to choose her own path." The Empress was silent for a long moment. Then she nodded once. "So be it." The cruisers began to turn away, retreating into the darkness. The battle was over. For now. Ethan leaned back in the pilot's chair, the tension finally easing from his shoulders. Ben let out a long breath. "We actually made it." Liara looked at them both, her voice soft but certain. "We made it. Together." But as the last Kryn ship disappeared into the black, Ethan's instincts whispered a warning. The galaxy was wide, and danger never stayed gone for long. The stars drifted slowly past the horizon's edge. The asteroid field was behind them now, and the vast quiet of space felt like a deep breath after the chaos. Ethan sat in the pilot's chair, hands resting loosely on the controls. For the first time in hours, the warning lights on the console were dark. No enemy ships, no alarms. Only calm. Liara stood near the viewport, watching the fading glow of the Kryn warships as they retreated. Her mother's voice still echoed in her mind. "You are safe now." But safety wasn't what she wanted most. Not anymore. Ben entered the cockpit, holding 3 steaming cups of cocoa. "I made extra," he said proudly. "One for each of us." Ethan smiled, taking his cup. "Thanks, kid." Liara accepted hers slowly, as if the small gesture carried more weight than he knew. She took a sip, her eyes still fixed on the stars. Finally, she turned toward Ethan. "My mother will send an escort to meet us. If I go with them, I'll be taken back to the palace. She will protect me, but I will be trapped again." Ethan met her gaze. "And if you stay with us," Liara smiled faintly, "I will be free. I will see the galaxy. I will decide who I am." Ben's voice was quick and eager. "Stay. You can be part of the crew. We could go on adventures. You could teach me how to use the turret." Liara laughed softly, a sound Ethan realized he hadn't heard from her before. It was warm, genuine. Her smile faded into something more serious. "If I stay, the Kryn will still come after me. And anyone with me." Ethan's voice was calm, but there was a strength in it. "They'll have to get through me first." For a moment, the 3 of them stood in silence, the hum of the ship filling the space between their words. Liara looked at Ben, then at Ethan. Her decision was already made. "I'll stay," she said, "for as long as you'll have me." Ben grinned so wide, it almost looked like his face would split. Ethan simply nodded, a quiet smile touching his lips. From the cockpit, the stars ahead seemed endless, 1,000 paths waiting to be taken. Liara stepped closer to the viewport. "What's our next destination?" Ethan glanced at the nav screen, then back at her. "Anywhere we want." Ben leaned forward, tapping the map. "There's a system here with 3 moons. Dad says the food there is amazing." Lyra's eyes lit up. "Then let's go." Ethan's hand rested on the throttle. The ship's engines came alive with a low, steady roar as the horizon's edge turned toward the distant stars. Ethan spoke softly, almost to himself. The galaxy is big, but as long as we have each other, it will never feel empty. The stars stretched into lines as the ship jumped into hyperspace, carrying a single father, his son, and an alien princess who had chosen freedom over a crown. And somewhere in the far reaches of the galaxy, unseen eyes were already watching.